And Chad, we appreciate your time, but I actually want to start with this before we get into Super Bowl stuff and NFL stuff. Your alma mater hired somebody that we got to see up close in person here in our backyard in Coach Prime. What were your thoughts when your Buffaloes hired Deion Sanders to be their coach?
Well, I, for one, had a very sad outlook about the Colorado Buffaloes program. And I thought there is not a coach in the country who can reinvigorate the program. Well, I was wrong. Coach Prime has been the guy who's been able to do that. Some of the issues facing the program, those had to be removed out of the way for the university to be able to go after Coach Prime. CU and Stanford had some of the most stringent transfer rules as far as transfers into the program. That was really not allowing them to be effective with the transfers that are happening now in college football. There was a limited amount of money for the head coach. There was even more limited amount for the assistant coaches pool. So for Rick George, the athletic director, to remove or at least amend the transfer rule, get some money for the head coach and for the assistant coaches, even if Coach Prime only ends up being a short-term hire, 2 or 3 years before he goes off to greener pastures, money pastures in the Big Ten or the SEC, Colorado's program is going to be in a far better place. So I was excited just at the removal of some of these hindrances that have been in the way, but Coach Prime has brought attention to the Colorado Buffaloes program that hasn't been there in over 2 decades. Plus, already in just 8 weeks on the job, he's brought in 43 new players into the program. It may be the greatest turnaround from a roster perspective in college football history. Between high school recruits and college transfers, 43 new kids into the program, and he is still sending out social media notices that they ain't done yet. So there is an excitement that hasn't existed in 2 decades. I'm optimistic. I am looking forward to the season. And this program that once seemed to just be dying now has a brand new life going.
And recruiting already picked up as well. So, Chad, from the Super Bowl perspective, I love all the pomp and circumstance and the commercials and the halftime shows and all the pregame stuff and everything. From the player's perspective, though, having played in it, how different, in terms of just like playing a football game, is the Super Bowl compared to even like your playoff games or a regular season game? Like, not, and I don't mean the stakes. Of course, the stakes are different, but just the course of preparing for the game, film study, practice, and then the game itself. How different is the Super Bowl compared to any other game that you've played in?
Well, typically, you get a week to prepare for an opponent, and your preparation is not even really the full week. As a player, you come in on Wednesday, you get the game plan. You go over third down on Thursday, you start polishing up on Friday, and Saturday is a walkthrough. So really, you don't spend a ton of time on each individual opponent. For the Super Bowl, you get the 2 weeks, obviously. Chances are you're playing somebody in the Super Bowl who's a really good team. So chances are at some point your coaching staff spent a portion of the offseason studying what that team does. If this team is that good and they're in the playoffs for the Super Bowl year in and year out, that's somebody we should look at. So there's just so much familiarity with the opponent due to the 2 weeks of work, due to the off-season study that happened. So you go into that game feeling incredibly confident about your assignments, your knowledge of the opponent. Therefore, I think the Super Bowl comes down to less of player mistakes and more of the coaches who can have more subtle wrinkles into their game plan and things like that. And also from the game playing standpoint, the halftime is double what a normal halftime is. So you've got to be able to be used to going into halftime completely cooling off and then finding a way to ramp it back up again and get yourself warmed up again. So it's a different game in a number of different ways.
You speak about familiarity. Did the Chiefs have that advantage in this game because this is their third Super Bowl? They've been there. They've done that. They know all the routines as opposed to the Eagles, who you got a lot of first-timers on that roster.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. A lot of the first week while you're still in your home city is dealing with the logistics of it all. How many tickets does each player get? Are tickets going to be, do guys with more seniority get more tickets? How many tickets do the practice squad guys get? All those kind of ticket issues. Because as a player, you're going to get hit up from all your family members, the guy who cut your hair when you were a kid, your fifth grade history teacher. They're all going to hit you up for tickets. So there's that. at some point, the wives are going to go down to be with their husbands in the host city. Then maybe a day or two after that, the families will go down. And there's all the hotel rooms and the logistics that go with that. So I think it's the more experienced you are as an organization with handling those kinds of things, the less headaches are involved in that process, and the more your team can focus on the game plan instead of just worrying about how am I going to get Aunt Mabel to the game.
One of the most dominant players in the AFC Championship game, it was another Mississippi guy, Chris Jones, the defensive tackle for the Chiefs, obviously from Mississippi State. When you see him and the level he's playing at right now, where do you put him among the top defensive players in the league?
I think for a player who is as good as he is, he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves because he plays on the same team with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So Chris Jones is one of the most dominant interior defensive linemen in the game who also has the ability to slide outside in certain situations. He's disruptive in the run game and in the pass game. His ability to continually get quarterbacks off the spot from his inside rush position. In some ways, he's the absolute best piece of that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs gave up the most touchdown passes of any defense during the regular season this year. But Chris Jones wasn't the issue. It was more of those guys back there in the secondary. So if he can have a good game and affect Jalen Hurts by pushing that pocket back, not even getting sacks, but by constantly pushing the pocket back and forcing Jalen Hurts to reset his feet, he can play a major factor in the Chiefs' success.
Visiting with Chad Brown, former All-Pro linebacker. Chad, about your career, I'm curious. You had, at least according to the internet, 79 sacks in your career. Is there one that is your absolute favorite?
I won't say they're like kids where you all love them the same. No, certain sacks are cooler than others. There's no doubt about that. It was a sack, gosh, I want to say maybe it was either 99 or 2000. We're playing in Cleveland on opening day, and I was playing outside linebacker. I don't believe it was a nickel situation where I was playing defensive end. I was playing outside linebacker early in the game, and they chose to block me with a running back. And he tried to go low on me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take note of that. So later in the game, we're in the same defense. They're in the same protection. I recognize the protection, and that running back comes to go low on me, and I just Superman fly completely over him. Tim Pouch was the quarterback at the time, and Tim's back was turned to me. So I don't even get a chance to hit Tim. All I do is get a chance to grab the back of his jersey, which would be a horse collar now, but there's no horse collar within the pocket. And I, brought him down by the back of his jersey. He had no idea I was not in his vision at all. I think he assumed the running back had gotten the block because I flew through the air. And that's there's several great shots of that sack. And it has been my screensaver on my phone from time to time when I need to relive my glory days.
Oh, that's good stuff. So we're getting up against a heartbreak. Got about a minute and a half left with you, Chad, and of course we appreciate your time. Do you have a lean here on this game, though? I've loved Philly myself through the playoffs. Mahomes, is he 100%? What is that going to look like? What is your lean here in this game? A very tiny line, basically a pick 'em.
I got Philly in this one in a close game. I love Kansas City Chiefs. My college teammate Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator out there. I would love for the Chiefs to win. I wouldn't be upset if they did. But Philly is built on their offensive and defensive line. That offensive line and that running game is just tough to deal with. We saw what they were able to do to the number one defense in football, the 49ers, just knock those guys off the ball. So if Philly is able to run the ball effectively early in the ball game, the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo are forced to bring another defender down into the box. Then those secondary guys who I talked about earlier in this call, they will get exposed. A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, I see a long touchdown pass or two if they're able to run the ball effectively and force the Chiefs defense to put that eighth guy in the box, and they'll go and throw the ball over their heads. That'll be the difference in a very, very close ball game.
Great stuff.